This is in no way my attempt to justify my comic book obsession. And this story, I really, really like. Artwork, the storytelling. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pull List. My name is Travis. Let's talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. Some of you may be thinking, oh, a pull list video on Monday, that's blasphemy. Pull list videos are supposed to come out on Wednesdays. Well, while that is the schedule that I've been keeping to, this week is a bit of an exception. I'm going to post a pull list video on Monday, and then I'm going to post my video on Indie PopCon this Wednesday for another pull list video. 2 pull list videos in 1 week. Aren't you super excited about that? But another thing that happened this weekend besides Indie PopCon was that I finally got around to seeing Spider-Man Homecoming on Saturday. And right after the movie, I went to Twitter and expressed my surprise that Spider-Man Homecoming might actually be my favorite Spider-Man film thus far. And a lot of people seem to agree with me, but there were a couple people that were a little bit questionable about my statement. Clint, I'm talking to you. So let's talk about Spider-Man Homecoming and why it might be my favorite Spider-Man film thus far. Before Civil War, my personal belief was that Tobey Maguire played a great Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield played a great Spider-Man. They didn't have the balance down right for Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And that is the thing about Spider-Man. There's a trick in the balance. Peter Parker is a nerd who gets bullied for always studying, but at the same time, he's Spider-Man, and in the suit, Spider-Man is a character. At the core of Spider-Man, the mask gives Peter confidence and the ability to just be off the wall and however he wants to act. Not to mention, it's confusing for villains and comforting for the civilian victims. Maguire's Parker was undoubtedly a genius, but he was still kind of awkward and unsure of himself even when he was in the spider suit. Garfield's Spider-Man was quick-witted and always cracking jokes, but it didn't make sense that his Peter Parker was a nerd. He was more like the laid-back, cool hipster with the hair. He lacked that Parker luck, which is so important for the character. Raimi's Spider-Man 2 was my favorite Spider-Man film for the villain's character arc and the overall story. It had one of the best fight scenes in any Spider-Man film, the one on the subway. It had Harry realizing that Peter was Spider-Man. It even borrowed from the Spider-Man No More storyline, with Peter deciding that he was not going to let Spider-Man get in the way of his life. Spider-Man 2 just has a lot of heart, and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is fantastic. But that's not exactly what this video is about. This video is about my thoughts leaving Spider-Man Homecoming. And with Homecoming comes another Peter Parker that we've already seen, albeit for a few minutes in Captain America Civil War, Tom Holland. Now, if you've not watched Spider-Man Homecoming, do not watch this video any further. There will be a lot of spoilers. After Captain America Civil War, many fans rejoiced, saying, "We finally got our Spider-Man. They finally got it right." They said he nailed the Peter Parker Spider-Man balance, even though he was a side character in a multi-character, gigantic budget movie. But many people were not convinced, saying that Tom Holland literally did nothing that we've never seen before in a Spider-Man film, and that there was not enough to go on to say that he was the best Peter Parker or best Spider-Man. But the thing is, a lot of people realize that with a Marvel influence this time, we might finally be getting the Peter Parker Spider-Man balance that we've been waiting for. So from Captain America Civil War to Spider-Man Homecoming, the Sony Marvel deal for Peter Parker actually benefited the character in and of itself. First off, it brought Spider-Man into the world of the Avengers, which has been a long time coming. It showed that Peter Parker was a genius, not only with his spider abilities, but also in academics, even though the suit is kind of fudged with some Stark upgrades, which is, it's to be expected. There are some people that are complaining that Spider-Man's suit is too much like an Iron Man suit, but I feel that it's different enough that it's able to be, I thought it was okay. And also, Spider-Man Homecoming skips over the origin story, which I feel is actually necessary at this point. And because of that, there are some people that are saying that Tony is there to sort of fill the Uncle Ben role, but I don't see that to be the case at all. In the comics, when Peter Parker first gets his Spider-Man abilities, he uses them for financial gain. Not in a selfish sort of way, but just to help out his aunt. And then Peter acts selfishly by letting a criminal escape, who will then go on to murder his Uncle Ben. Because of this, Peter learns that with great power comes great responsibility, and he must use his powers to help people. We saw that in the comics, we saw a version in Spider-Man 1, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, it is a constant. This is what happens to Peter's character. In Homecoming, it completely skips over the origin story, the spider bite, Uncle Ben's death, which, like I said, I feel is a little necessary at this point. Seriously, he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, he gets spider powers, Uncle Ben dies, responsibility, we get it. But to say that Tony is taking the uncle role doesn't really make any sense, aside from the fact that it seems like he has the hots for Aunt May. At the beginning of Spider-Man's introduction in Spider-Man Homecoming, it takes place right before the battle at the airport in Civil War. Tony found Aunt Parker gives him an upgraded suit, takes him to the airport to fight. He fights, the battle happens, and then he goes home. And then for the next few months, Peter is trying to help people, but he's wanting to help in bigger ways. I mean, for him to have superpowers and want to help people in bigger ways, that sounds pretty reasonable, don't you think? It's almost as if Peter got bitten by a radioactive spider, his uncle taught him about responsibility, his uncle died, and then Spider-Man Homecoming began. There's even a quick line in Spider-Man Homecoming that pseudo mentions Uncle Ben's fate. Peter says that he can't do that to his Aunt May after everything that has happened. That everything is the death of Uncle Ben, but that happens months before the majority of the film takes place. That means for the sake of the plot, Peter doesn't really have to mourn his Uncle Ben because it happened months ago and not in the film. And then with the ending, Peter turns down the official invite to be one of the Avengers to just stick with being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it completely floors Tony. That doesn't make any sense to him. This sounds like a kid who's learned responsibility from someone other than Stark. Alright, we talked about Maguire and Garfield, but how does Tom Holland stack up with the Spider-Man Peter Parker combo? Well, with Holland's portrayal, you really get a sense of how intelligent he is, completely aside from Spider-Man. Peter is clearly an outcast nerd who has a group of nerdy friends, but he can't help push them away when he's acting as Spider-Man. He chooses Spider-Man over everything, as he should. There was actually a moment with the hotel pool where I thought that Peter was actually gonna hang out with his friends instead of going after the bad guys, and I was really worried for a moment. Thankfully, he went after the bad guys, but that moment right there where I was worried for what he was going to do was very important for me as a viewer. As heartbreaking as some of Peter's decisions have to be, I know in my head which path he has to go down in order to be Spider-Man the hero. Peter Parker should always put the well-being of others above his own life. He should put the safety of others above his own safety. Spider-Man over everything. A great example of this was the Washington Monument scene where he's trying to do everything in his power and he's so flustered with trying to come up with a way to save his friends. There's a sense of calm panic where he's trying to make light of the situation, but on the inside you know that he's worried that his classmates might die without his help. And the suit's AI, Karen, was a great addition, reminiscent of Jarvis, but many of her statements were able to lighten the mood and help Peter keep his head on straight. Tom Holland was able to play Spider-Man so gracefully because of his acrobatic and gymnastic history, something that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield didn't really have. It also helped his body language in the suit because if you're hiding inside of a mask and people can't see your face, body language is just that much more important in expression. With the way that he moves, Tom Holland is able to show Spider-Man as this excited but yet green-thumbed superhero. He's still sort of flustered, but he wants to prove that he is a valued member of the team. The Chitauri weapons connection with Toomes and his gang made a lot of sense for them as villains in connection with the MCU. The little guy cutting off a little more meat for himself from the fat upper class. And in doing so, helped kickstart Spider-Man's rogues gallery in a way that really made sense in the universe. And let me just say that Michael Keaton was terrifying as Adrian Toomes, especially when he got upset. His suit was upgraded from the comics in a big way, but like I said, it made a lot of sense in the context of the MCU. And that Vulture identity reveal was probably one of my favorite parts of the entire film. I had no idea that Toomes was going to be the one to open that door until I saw his creepy smile, and then it became a game of how much does he know and when will he find out everything else. Honestly, up to that point I thought the pacing of the movie was going very well, but then when they were leaving for Homecoming I thought, it's getting a tad slow. I mean, I knew that Peter was going to need to leave Homecoming once they got there, but not in that way. Toomes is able to put two and two together about how Peter and Spider-Man are always in the same area, but never in the same place at the same time. Which then, after Toomes threatens Peter in the car, gives the story a burst of momentum into the third act. Speaking of Michael Keaton though, dude loves playing winged superheroes, doesn't he? Batman, Birdman, Vulture, man, yeah, the Vulture is a villain, but I feel that Adrian Toomes sees the Vulture as a superhero. Donald Glover as Aaron Davis was amazing, and I'm so glad he showed up again in the movie after the bridge scene. For those of you that don't know, Aaron Davis is the criminal uncle of Miles Morales in the Ultimate Universe. So whether it was a subtle nod to the source material or a hint of what's to come in the future, it was a great cameo. And there were also very subtle nods to possibly Silk and Deadpool in the film, which I thought were pretty neat. During that final battle, I was kind of worried that Iron Man was gonna swoop in and help Spider-Man defeat the Vulture, and I'm really glad that he did not. Spider-Man should be able to defeat his own villains in his own films. And people have been calling Spider-Man Homecoming Iron Man 5 even before it was released, with Iron Man 4 being Captain America Civil War. And I can kind of see that, but from a marketing standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to have Robert Downey Jr. have a strong presence in this film. Sony and Marvel make this incredible deal, and Sony and Marvel both want the film to be successful, but Marvel wants to flex a little bit. Sit back, Sony. Let us show everyone what we can do with our long-lost poster child. So of course they're going to add Robert Downey Jr. into the mix as the mentor-type character. Not only does it give fans a character that we are already years familiar with and the ability to give us a Spider-Man suit that we've never seen before with the Stark upgrades, but Iron Man has been the face of the MCU for years, and Tony Stark has even gone down the same sort of superhero path that Peter Parker is currently going down. Minus the arms dealing. Circumstances cause Hero to build a suit. Suit gets upgraded, Hero depends heavily on the suit. Suit gets taken away, Hero must learn how to be a hero without the advanced suit. That's why when Tony takes the spider suit away, he tells Peter that he wanted him to be better than he was. Not to mention, Robert Downey Jr. isn't going to be around much longer in the MCU, probably. So it makes sense to put him in as many things as they can to draw viewership. But there were some things that I was kind of unhappy with in Spider-Man Homecoming. But first, let's talk about the things that I preferred from previous Spider-Man films. I already talked about the arc of Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2, probably my favorite Spider-Man villain arc thus far. Keaton was chilling in his portrayal of the Vulture, which was great, but Alfred Molina brought humanity to the character of Doc Ock, and he also did that whole self-sacrifice thing at the end of the movie. As for Garfield's Spider-Man, the films were a bit off, but a lot of his off-the-cuff jokes were hilarious. Spider-Man Homecoming had some funny moments, but there weren't the constant wisecracks that we should be getting from a Spider-Man. And maybe it's because Tom Holland's Peter Parker is so new to the world of superheroes that he hasn't found his improv voice yet. I mean, this is a kid that has grown up with superheroes around. He's a fanboy. That was obvious from Civil War. Hopefully when Peter Parker gets a little more comfortable with the other heroes and taking down villains, we'll get to hear some more quips. And the MJ reveal was kind of botched, because after months and months of the studio saying, no, Zendaya's not playing Mary Jane, then at the end of the movie, Michelle says that her initials are MJ. What? Michelle's initials are MJ, even though her name isn't Mary Jane. I mean, Mary Jane could be her middle name, Michelle Mary Jane? I don't know, it just felt really forced and just tacked on right there at the end, like, nah, here, ha ha ha. But in the Spider-Man Homecoming novelization, Michelle is actually Adrian Toomes' daughter instead of Liz. It just doesn't make any sense. That being said, I honestly believe that Spider-Man Homecoming is the best overall Spider-Man film that we've gotten. Sure, there are flaws, like with any film, and there are aspects of previous films that I enjoyed a little bit more, but as a complete story with a new terrifying villain with a pretty great backstory, and Peter Parker balancing Spider-Man and school, and Tom Holland portraying a pretty great Spider-Man and Peter Parker, Spider-Man Homecoming takes the cake. Also, it's a fresh enough take on the character that it doesn't feel like the 7th film we've had to feature a Spider-Man. In the comments down below, let me know your thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming, because if you've watched this far, I'm really hoping that you've seen the movie and I didn't just spoil a whole bunch of stuff for you. Like I said, this Wednesday I'm hoping to get the Indie PopCon video up, so stay tuned for that. Tomorrow, don't exactly know what that video is going to be, but I'm working on it. That's it for this episode of The Pull List. My name is Travis. Thank you for fueling my comic book obsession, and you will see me tomorrow.